Hi, this is the current iteration of my Monarchy Logos article. Not much of this has changed except for more updates that I've made. And I'm gonna show you this part. What is ineffable is meant of irrefutable. What is absolute is meant of irreducible. What is necessary is meant of inevitable. These three are of one true nature. And I'm gonna show this part. Let's start from here. Divine not as a part in itself is itself prior to both isness and is notness. So the one isn't even an is meant of prior to being isness. And it's not the same as it's not or the not one, which is said of a relation of the irreducible in another expression of it that is other than itself, as an other, away from itself, as an is and an is not, which is not what I'm trying to get to, because that is not what is represented here. Moving along, this time I have 8 pages of 4, so 4 of each. I'm just showing you the smaller thing here, but I'm gonna show you the 32 pages individually again. So next year, I don't know if I'm gonna call it this or not, but this will change and this will change. And the website, I might change to another one, but it's not gonna be Pythagorical, by the way. That's just a misleading thing that I'm doing right now. And here's this part. This is more of a visual thing. You could get it if you get it just by looking at it. There's nothing too obscure or anything, other than that there's an egg over here. If nobody noticed that, then I don't know. Anyways, scrolling down, this part is sort of outdated for reasons that I'm gonna get to in the future, in this video, but in the future, as in like later in this video, I should say. I'm not sure if I showed this in a previous update, but this is slightly better terms, I should say, of what I've tried to explain in my previous iterations. But yeah, so let me just read these off. Indeterminate concept, a reifiable concept, and attributive definitions derived from the concept, the contradiction purgation of the attributive definitions of the reifiable concept that comes from the indeterminate concept, and there's a independently knowable that arises from the purgation of contradictions with definitions attributive to a concept that's reifiable, which is the clavis or golden key or whatever to unlocking the secrets of what is a well-defined concept in its realization, which it's paired with its unrealized, ill-defined concept derealization. So I don't know if that's a double negative or not, but it doesn't matter because it goes in a bin. So there's an unverifiable concept, there's unattributed definitions, there's contradiction requirements rather than purgation of contradictions, and there's independently unknowable, which is basically either objective or subjective, but not absolute. For if it was absolute, it would be understandable to a subject, but not necessarily. But that doesn't mean that just because a subject is not that bright enough to understand it doesn't mean that it's not real. And this part here is really about the circumduction fallacy when you apply it back into itself as a feedback loop. Now this part is new. Let me zoom in a little bit. OBS is crying now. Matter as consubstantial zero matrix of inverse rotating spins at rest. The psychic etheric substrate with the primordial radiance of the one begets matter. So the psychic etheric substrate, or 5 to the power negative 2 with the primordial radiance of Toma or agnosis or Ananke, but not really Ananke, but more of a extrinsic attribute of Ananke for Aoristos for Toma. If it'll make sense if you read my book carefully, or if you read Ken's books on the indefinite dyad. But anyways, 5 to the power negative 2 plus 5 to the power negative 3 equals 5 to the power negative 1, which is what is meant by this sentence. And the dielectromagnetic hyperbolic paraboloidal harmonic of 4 etheric mimetic points on a sphere. So this will be the sphere that I'm talking about here. And there's an intellective highly central point which is prior to the posterior hyperboloidal gyromagnetic precessional axis. So this axis here comes after the intellective highly central point. So imagine for a second there's 4 points here, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's these points are just ether magnetic points of location. So it's a mimetically imprinted location upon the ether. And there's 4 of them. So there's a sort of tetrahedron here. And not an octahedron, but a tetrahedron. It's just a forced perspective projection visualization that I have right here. So there's a 4 and a 5th over here. The 5th is of this, which is a intellective halic central point, and the perpendicular convergent constructive inverse zero time phase spin laser impulse. That's a mouthful, but as the rate of electromagnetic induction, which is not really a speed, but it is expressed in terms of a rate of the medium conveyed or observed through using matter, emotion, to derive a measure to compare the ether with. So c over t to the power 0, so 0 time. So what is the rate of induction at 0 time? Well, that's basically what will be a distance over time multiplied by a 0 time. So you just basically negate the time aspect of the speed, which leads to the measure of the magnitude of the spherical paradigm, which the reason why it's spherical is because there's 2 plus minus negative 5 to the power negative 3 over 4 over here, which there's 2 of them as a where is it? As a helical path of 2 etheric magnetic points of location. So imagine there's 2 points here. There will be a path between those 2 points, which there's 4 of them for the tetrahedron, which is the bare minimum for realizing that there's more than one plane that is behind the structure of the 4 points. It's not the perspective plane, but rather the plane of the object itself does not fit merely within the perspective in motion, in 3-dimensional motion. So let me go back here. The etheric magnetic points of location is more of a very okay. So the etheric magnetic points of location as the primordial radiance upon the etheric substrates, but divided by 4 only because at the bare minimum for there to be a platonic stereometric form, you need the bare minimum 4 points to have the least amount of points to have a solid or projection of a solid or whatever. And gonna read the rest here. Electricity within time is primordial agnosis as magnitudinal measures of distance and time for matter in motion. The one provides unity to the self-limiting matter as protium, but the one is absent from each atom. So why I put that there is because some people think that the one is a proton, but it's just a direct translation misinterpretation of the term proton or protium as an atom, as the one, which people use that argument to push for plurality of one, but it doesn't really exist as a plurality. I mean, the absolute doesn't exist as a plurality, but it provides in each to the atom that depends upon the unity that it has to the one for it to be other than the one. Which there is others, but that other is not in one in itself. A way like without the one. It's not a one without the one. Anyways, moving on. The path of voltaic displacement through time as a wave is mapping the hyperbolic paraboloid at its edge. So this dark path is the one towards the screen, and this lighter grayer path is away from the screen. So this is a saddle like geometry or surface, you could say. And when the dielectric, okay, so this part, so these circles here, or this line as well, that's the dielectric anti-field meets the rotating magnetic field, which is the magnetic field over here with the current that's going through it. Electricity manifests. Hidden tetrahedral projected geometry within the saddle hyperbolic paraboloid. So I just drew arcs in these points. To convey the warped tetrahedral form. And I already explained this. So why is it inverse and constructive rotating spins at rest? Well, that will come for another time, but in a more physical recording. But in the meantime, try and mentally or not mentally, or on GeoGebra or whatever wires you got at home, try and using two twist ties of the same magnitude length, and bend it twice. Bend each of the twist ties of the same length twice, so that you could combine them together to form a tetrahedral form, or tetrahedron. Because if you grasp that, you will understand that the tetrahedron itself has a bidirectional, perpendicular bidirectional spin into itself and chasing itself, trapped into itself. But it's hard to visualize this to some people, so again, that'll come to another time. And these are the same as before, though I'm just gonna say that the Horn torus volume, that is within the cubed volume of, within the sphere within the cube, there could be two of these within the cube. So if there's two of these in the cube, it'll be take up a volume of 5 to the power of -1, and so the absence of that space will be 5 to the power -2, which, if you remove it from the square of, this cube that has two of the Horn torus volumes that's circumscribed, that is inscribed by the sphere, then you'll get a negative space of 5 to the power -2, which is implied in this, But some people wouldn't believe me until I say that. So I'm saying it just to say that you're not the first guy to have thought about this. And here's my version of the metaphysical water. So this part is cut into imagine this line doesn't exist for now. So 5 1 1 1 over 5 cuts. Ken didn't put this part here, but I did, and I used this and then used the this proportion to realize a similar looking diagram that Ken has, but it's technically different, but it takes up less how do I say it? Takes up less overall, and explaining that is a little hard to do because I don't have it up, but basically I could show it in one of the older PDFs. Yeah, not that one. What's this one? So the older ones here, let me just show it to you. Hold on as that loads. 10. So this is the older one that is based about Ken stuff. So 1.18, 1.42. So technically I am using less lengths, but in total this is okay. So what I mean by total is the 5 1 1 and 1 over 5. All of this together is 5, but conveyed through these means. So 5 to the power negative 2 as a 5, 5 to the power negative 3 as a 1, which is this here, and the same in this side for here, and 5 to the power negative 4 as 1 over 5 here, which equals to 5, as 5 to the power 3 plus 2 to the power negative 2, 5 to the power negative 2, if I get that right. Well, anyways, the 5 to the power negative 2 aspect is over here in this image, but it's not really there because it's also, you could say it's a triplicate of here and here and here. So the my Mises Heil thing, if you could recall, though I'm gonna show it later, the soul could be bound to the idols as a 1, my Mises as a 1, Heil as a 1, but it could also be connected to both mimesis and Heil as a phi, which is a conjoinment of two aspects of imitation and matter that the psyche has, as if it was different from the material psychic relation and the mimetic psychic relation as a separate thing altogether, as a phi anyways, moving on, I should say that this is how you could sort of get the spiral to a specific center of the spiral without, drawing out every single curve in this golden ratio spiral. You could, using these proportions, you could slide it. Like, imagine if this could be like moved. This part could be like moved, shifted, like that, and this will be truncated accordingly, proportionally. Using these angles, and I'm gonna move on. Here's the circle squared page. This derived center. So presume that you have a circle. You start off with a circle. You make another circle using a point upon the circle to make 2 more points, which you make 2 more circles with the same magnitude as the first circle upon the circle, which you could do perpendicular bisectors to derive the center, where these two meet. These two bisectors, perpendicular bisectors, meet is the center, and then I did all of this stuff to inscribe the circle in a square. This is presuming you don't use a square or a 90-degree angle, but all 90-degree angles uses the Pisces and all that, so showing all those steps on this will be a clusterfuck, basically, so I didn't bother with that. And anyways, moving on, the golden mean of the diameter is derived using the half of the radius perpendicular to a chosen diameter at its edge. So from here to here, you draw a line, a sphere actually, but an arc, basically, since arc from a circle. And then you derive this point and you make another circle here. Then you make a perpendicular here. So this point is the golden mean of the golden mean of diameter. I dropped the "the" for brevity and looks. So you make a perpendicular there, make a line here, and a line here, and then you make another arc, make another perpendicular here, make a line here and a line there, and the perpendicular bisectors of the previous lines, the previous 2 lines, are used to make smaller circles, but you don't use the smaller circles upon the longer lines, but on the shorter lines. I just have it here in light gray lines just to show what it proportionally visualizes. So this line here will be the same length as this, which means a circle that is centered through here is of the same diameter as the length from here to here. So this will be a radius and this will be a diameter, but this diameter line here is off center from the circle, but this centers it. And then there's this part inscribes smaller circles in squares. So This is basically repeating this part, but for each smaller square. And these gray lines and the gray circles are just for visuals. Looks not important, at least in this page. And here's the curves page. Nothing really changed. Here's the pyramidal proportions page. This is just not important. I just drew up something that looks nice. This is sort of important for Egyptologists, maybe, but not really to me, actually. But this one is important, but it's old. I already explained this in a previous video, but you could look at it carefully for yourself and understand it for yourself. And I already explained this part in another video too. This part two. I'm not sure if I explained this in a previous video, but I'm just gonna explain it again. So given an equilateral n equals or n towards infinite-sided polygon, which there is none, but it goes towards it, that's a partial measure, but it's not the actual measure of an infinite, which if it's a polygon, it would not be a circle by definition. So it's an oxymoron and self-contradiction. But anyways, given an equilateral n towards infinite-sided polygon with the same area as the circle, it approximately approaches towards the measure of the circumference of a circle with the same area as the polygon, not the same circumference as the polygon, but rather the same area as the polygon. It's presupposed already in this part of the sentence. So whatever polygon you make, if it has the same area as the circle, at a certain point, its perimeter, the polygonal perimeter, approaches towards the measure of the circumference of a circle, if that makes sense. However, they are equilateral polygons with a greater perimeter than true pi, despite having the same area as the unit diameter circle's area square. The lines between these I read before. They're the same as before, I should say. The circumscribed triangle to 1 unit diameter circle has sides longer than 1. Circumscribed pentagon to 1 unit diameter circle has sides shorter than 1. So this is shorter than 1. And this is longer than 1. And any inscribed polygon side is shorter than diameter 1 unit diameter. All inscribed polygons have no direct proportion to the 1 unit diameter circle. Only the circle's area squares perimeter side, or the circle's perimeter squares perimeter side, is also the value of its area, which is important. So in other words, the triangle or the pentagon cannot be used to understand the proportion of the circle to the square, or vice versa. And this part, maybe I showed it in the previous video, I'm not sure. Yeah, you could just get it for yourself just by looking at it. And this part is kind of new. I didn't bother with adding these parts into it, but I should maybe. I don't know. this is basically saying that the quadratics curve, so this part, this curve here, using true pi measure as 4 square root of 5 to the power negative 1 does not negate phi proportionality. It is not rigorous enough if it works on any substitute measures, so it doesn't have a it doesn't remove contradictions by how people claim that the quadratic curve has to arrive to true pi. Well, if I presume that the quadratic curve reaches to this proportion, which you could kind of grasp how I made it, but if this curve reaches here, then this is valid, so this curve is useless to deny stuff, to deny a certain nature of a circle, when you could just change the values of it. So it's not rigorous enough of a definition. And there's this part, and there's this part. This is old. This is new, the sixfold dialectic, and it's 36 contradistinguishable modes. So this expression here is irrefutable, irreducible, inevitable one. This expression here is the undifferentiated unity. This expression here is the intellective duality. This expression here is the soulful trinity. This expression here is the material quaternity. And this expression here is the living continuity ad infinitum. So here's all 36 of these. I'm not gonna bother saying all of these out except for the middle column, which is the first order, and it has 6 descents and 6 ascents. So the irreductive, retroductive, abductive, deductive, inductive, and circumductive, which again, as I said earlier in the video that I gotta get into this part, well, the circumductive is as said here, I think, is dealing with recursion or recursive algorithms in reapplying things into itself to try to get something different from it, which is going around in a circle, which is delusional, basically. And I should just read the other stuff here, the roughly translated and transliterated definitions. Irreduction leads not, it has arrived at the one true nature. Retroduction leads backwards to neither, both negated, positive. Abduction leads away as both negating and positing. Deduction leads to negate what is posited. Induction leads to posit. Circumduction leads in cyclic spiraling. So reversion is ascent, procession is descent, remaining is that first order hypostasis. First order is self-contained, as you can see by the arrows. The greater orders have lesser orders within. So let's say this order here has this and this within it. So the greatest sixth order is most fragile. So here's the sixth order ascent and the sixth order descent. These depend. Excuse me. They're 5 orders away from the first order as a sixth. And the fractional expressions as measures of antecedent to consequence of the hypostasis. So let's take this hyodus or induced abduction. So this is the expression of a named measure of the antecedent dialectic to its consequent dialectic. And so here's hyozoe, for example, is a material descent into life, and zoe hyo is the living ascent into matter. Zoe is furthest from hen, irreductive, irreductively unnegatable. I explained that profane inspiration fails to become irreductive. So it's like going around and around, but failing to reach here. And the divine circuit comes and goes into the irreductive, so just goes around and back into itself and ends into itself. And here's this diagram that let me zoom out a bit, that shows this diagram here in a different manner. So I put the arrows here to convey the sort of motion that's going on in this diagram, the flow of this. And moving on, here's this page. This part has some connection to this, and this, as well as this has some connection to this, but not really. Or I haven't finished updating this book, but it's, as I said before, it might not be the gonna called Logos again. It might be a different book name. And here's this part here. I'm not sure if I've shown this. Okay, so these 4 signs here, they might be shifted in the next iteration, but as you could see, I named this the 2022 final. It's final because it'll be the final update for this year, and I want to be updating it in time in the next update within this year. So yeah, this part is sort of updated. So distance as measure of magnitudinal magnitude over unit magnitude, time equals material measure of motive distance over unit distance, and speed equals material motive rate of distance over time, velocity as coordinate material motive rate of distance origin to other points on the spatial axis over time origin to other point on temporal axis or axis, which this velocity is more contingent upon a metric paradigm, which the metric system is based upon water. So to even derive velocity, we use water as a unifying unit, as a measuring stick of sorts to compare other masses and such. So without water, there's no coordinate system to speak of. So a velocity without a coordinate system upon a chosen standard, there is no specific way of determining velocity, but rather just speed without a standard. Though speed has itself a standard of distance and time, which is derived from its previous emanations as conveyed here. And I guess that's it for now. Sorry for the background noise. people should read this page more. And they keep asking me the same questions, but keep missing the point behind what I'm conveying. They should read this part too if they're bored. Oh yeah, I've updated this a bit. I have the wise food beneath the wise intelligent this time. And I guess that's it for now. I have seen this mictone, but I have also seen it being used as mictone with the E epsilon, so I'm not sure about the spelling. If you know the correct spelling in Euclid rather than Plato, then tell me and I'll use that one. But for now, I'm just using mictone here rather than mictone. And I guess that's it. Again, sorry for the long video. I hope this was informative. And see you in the next video or whatever, or in the comments, or if you decide to email me, email whatever. But I'm gonna keep this email open for now until I decide on a new name for the new website, which is not gonna be based on Pythagorical, by the way. Nope, absolutely not. I'm just using Pythagorical on the YouTube side, so yeah, I'm just gonna leave it as that. Thanks for watching. See you next time.